Welcome aboard to the Captain Crypto Show. Today, we join the Captain's Council to discuss the latest developments in the world of cryptocurrency. Here's your host, Kylan Hurt.
And welcome back to the Captain's Council. Tonight, it's Wednesday, December 20th, 2017. And while a lot of the shops and the businesses around town are starting to slow down for the Christmas season, there's one thing we found, it's that cryptocurrency does not sleep. And in fact, things seem like they're still heating up. So tonight I'm joined by Chris Groshong of Coinstructive, who you might recognize from my interview a few weeks ago. Then I'm also joined by Jacob. How's it going, Jacob?
Doing really well. Things are really crazy. The stock market seems to be a little more relaxed, but crypto doesn't sleep, as you said.
Well, as I referenced before, this week has been a very exciting one. And just yesterday, Tuesday, Coinbase actually announced that they were adding support for Bitcoin Cash. Now, they had announced earlier, I think it was last summer, that they would be supporting it probably at some point in January. But now here we are at December, and it looks like Coinbase, by supporting Bitcoin Cash and giving their users access to the Bitcoin Cash funds that they had from the fork in August, it's almost like they've given people a little bit of an extra or early Christmas present, right, Chris?
Yeah, I had a buddy of mine call me up today or text me, and he said,
"What is
so I just got Bitcoin Cash in my Coinbase account, so I was thinking about selling it right away." And I said, well, maybe you should just...
Good luck.
Maybe you should, good luck if you can get it out, but two, maybe you should just hold on to it because...
What's the current price right now on Coinbase of Bitcoin Cash? Does anyone know?
I think it's about $3,600 last time I checked.
So anyone who actually sold right away actually ended up with a profit, right? It was like, it started like 5,000. I think it was the
I guess it depends what you mean by profit, like compare, like the price.
You could buy back in right now and you'd have more. Yeah.
All those transactions executed then, yeah?
They paused trading really quickly right afterwards, so it was like 10 minutes of trading. That's what I remember. I saw a video of it live, but...
Yeah, it seemed like it was a bit of a cluster. You know what? I know the price. For some reason, people that I know were in Coinbase. I think they were either trying to buy it or sell it, and the price was showing that it was something like 9,000, which looks like it was maybe a glitch or something like that, because I don't really believe that there were at least that many people selling for that amount. But it seems like it brought even Coinbase's IT architecture, if you will, to a screeching halt.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just they didn't wait long enough for liquidity to build up. There was a lot of people calling foul on Reddit. I saw a lot of people getting there's a big storm right now of people getting really mad at Coinbase. I saw a few commentaries on it. I typically don't think that Coinbase as a whole did any insider trading.
Yeah, I know there was a lot of talk about supposed insider trading, but if there's one thing that I think about this space is that definitely insider trading is kind of a more traditional, institutional sort of rule. So for starters, when we're talking about these currencies, we're not talking about stocks, so it's already a little bit different. But in general, I remember some people saying, because for those of you who were not paying too close attention, the price of Bitcoin Cash started essentially skyrocketing in the hours before the announcement, which would lead you to believe that there was at least some sort of leak of information. But of course, the term leak means you only use that term when you're saying that things are not supposed to leak, right? So I remember some people saying, you can't be doing this. Like, then you need to have an investigation into whether people were leaking information, and you need to make sure that your Coinbase employees were not trading Bitcoin Cash. But I mean, even if there's no way to completely plug up that leak. I think that's completely ridiculous. Even if your employees are not the ones buying and selling Bitcoin Cash, then you can better believe that they'll be telling their friends and people who they might not be able to have traced back to.
It's it's basically, for cryptocurrency, it's completely impossible to really completely prove.
Well, they opened the market though hours before to build the liquidity, and then they launched the
But you can trade on
other.
There's other exchanges you could trade on. And the other exchanges reacted to the way they launched it, and the fact that they launched it. And I saw that the price went up on other exchanges right before Coinbase launched theirs. So,
but you would think that the people who got in to set the markets for GDAX, right, were the ones who were approved by them, so they knew who all those people were.
Yeah, but it could be like me telling my friend cuts me half of it, And there's other ones too. So like GDAX, I'm sure there's anonymous ways of trading Bitcoin Cash that they could have taken advantage of.
I'm sure when there's this much money on the line, they'll find very creative ways of making sure that they can make some sort of money off of it. But it does kind of beg the question, do you guys think that someone who works for a big company, whether it's a big wallet company or a big exchange, do you think they have some sort of duty, like a fiduciary duty to the community at large or their users to not engage in this sort of quote unquote insider trading behavior?
Well, it's definitely in the corporation's best interest, right? So the corporation probably should definitely, just because it's
bad for the reputation for sure.
No one, and it's been really bad for Coinbase's reputation, the fact that people think this, whether it's true or not. So I think if they can find anything, I think they will. They'll try their best. Yeah,
and the one thing I will mention is that a lot of these complaints about the way that it was rolled out, I think some of it probably is actually being what's the term? Amplified by people who are not big supporters of Bitcoin Cash. So you will see some of the the regular Bitcoin maximalists, the Bitcoin Core supporters, definitely going out of their way to emphasize what things might have gone wrong, whether it's exaggerated or not. So I think people out there do need to take it with a grain of salt. Now, one thing I did notice is, and I didn't pay too much attention to this because I didn't have any Bitcoin. I didn't have any Bitcoin on Coinbase at the time of the split because I why would you? You would have less control over it. You would have had to wait half a year almost in order to get your Bitcoin out.
I checked my wallet and it had been converted. So, I mean, I had like $10 or $15 in there.
Woo!
So
right. So do you?
No mining fees though.
Yeah, I haven't even checked my account, but I'm pretty sure I didn't have anything in there at the time. But I'm curious. Do you think? Because like I said, I didn't check. Would you have access to being able to buy and sell it at that point? Like, do you have full access to Bitcoin Cash, like with Bitcoin and Ethereum and Coinbase now?
Yeah.
Okay. So you think it's probably already entirely rolled out?
Yeah, I think so. I think probably everybody has access to it now. I mean,
I got banned on Coinbase a long time ago. So.
There was a notification that came through.
Got it. Yeah, I think one thing, and I don't want to get too far into it, but you have to think with the way that fees are going with Bitcoin that someone, like, I'm not going to say Roger Ver, but whoever's trying to really push for Bitcoin Cash, maybe the people that are actually part of the project or people who are big, quote unquote, whales, I wouldn't be surprised if they're really just going after everyone that they can, trying to get as much support for the currency as possible, because this is the time to do it during the high fees. Mm-hmm. And of course, every time it gets supported on another major exchange or wallet, that helps boost the value of the currency, which they usually are holding quite a bit of, right?
Well, I mean, look, Roger's not hiding the fact that he's promoting it. Yeah. So, I mean, we can go ahead and put him out there on the table. I think.
He seemed a little wacky. I mean, what do you think about his? I mean, is it just a profit incentive that he's doing it for? Do you think, or?
Well, I mean, look, he has a ton of Bitcoin, right? Mm-hmm. And he's got a ton of Bitcoin Cash.
That's also true of every Bitcoin person who has a lot of Bitcoin. I mean,
yeah, but but not everybody is as like shrewd of a businessman and a risk taker like Roger
maybe.
Is. So,
yeah.
like, I mean, the way I look at it, and I don't know if this is what they're doing or what's happening specifically, but the way I see it is they're using Bitcoin Cash to pump Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
And then the money keeps flowing back and forth between the two, but every time one pumps, new money comes in. Yeah, and then it stabilizes that, so then the money moves back. They basically keep going up the ladder next in parallel.
I'm surprised that's been able to be maintained. If you look at it like Ethereum Classic is like dying in comparison to Ethereum. It's not keeping up at all. So I'm pretty I don't know. I'm not impressed. I mean,
I think it's the marketing. It's the same name almost. People are getting confused.
I mean, the Ethereum Classic, like, but I think Bitcoin just is more. I think it's probably a less tech savvy crew on the whole.
Well, look, Roger was like in LA, like promoting it to a bunch of millionaires at like a house party, right? Like,
do you think that worked? I mean, I feel like
that was like I'm not kidding you. The next day, like I had a lady that called me from Pasadena. She's like, I'm going to talk to Roger, like see Roger Ver talk tonight at this like mansion party thing. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. Right. Cool. Enjoy.
Hurry up and buy some Bitcoin Cash next time you hear those rumors.
and I'm not kidding you. The next day, Bitcoin Cash went from like $400 to like $700, and then it was like $900 like 2 days later. And I'm like, oh my god.
I mean, does it just have a lot of influence, or are they just stupid?
I think he's.
Jacob's showing his cards a little bit. If you're
I have Bitcoin Cash.
If you're not sure,
almost an equal amount. I have an almost equal amount. I mean, I just don't see the financially I'm basically split between them because I'm not taking a stand yet. But just
I have a friend who sold a whole bunch of Bitcoin, and he got in like in 2013 and like put all of his like life savings in, and he's buying. He was like, I'm buying as much Bitcoin Cash as I can get my hands onto.
Yeah, I think that's sort of.
And I was like, what?
That's a little.
But I respect him, and he's a really smart guy, and I've been meaning to follow up with him, and I haven't been able to get him.
The thing
on
is,
the phone.
I don't get it. I mean, besides the marketing of it, what benefit does it have over like Litecoin? I mean,
right. So that's the thing. I don't know if it has much of an advantage over something like Litecoin. Obviously, it has the branding, but I think just because.
Speaking of branding, Bitcoin Cash on Coinbase, I saw that it was, they did choose Bitcoin Cash. They didn't choose Bcash. I think Bitfinex.
That was big. That's a big decision that they've made. Yeah.
Right. But that has a huge implication for it.
Yeah, it definitely does. But what I was saying is, I think in general right now, since Bitcoin's having problems with the fees, that you're going to see Dash, Litecoin, and Bitcoin Cash. And I think those are probably the main three that are really going to eat up. I don't know if I'd necessarily say that they'll eat up a bunch of Bitcoin's market share, but I would not be surprised if they do, at least until Bitcoin gets an actual sort of scaling solution. Because for small transactions, it is difficult right now with Bitcoin.
But if you keep using one to pump the other while new money flows into both as they're trying to catch a wave, right? So Bitcoin Cash goes from, 1,500 to 5 and settles at 37. Well, then $2,500 new dollars come in, right? $2,700 new are pumped up the price. But what happened to that 3 to 5, right? That's sold off. Where did it go? Probably into Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin starts going up, right?
I'm still boggled by the fact that it's been maintained at this rate. Like the price hasn't been dropping. Like
because he's marketing the heck out of it. Like he's got people all over the world like running around talking about Bitcoin Cash. I mean, look at Dash. Did you think Dash would be $1,150 or whatever?
I mean that would make it like a bigger Ponzi scheme than Bitcoin BitConnector. I mean, it is.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Dash. I've tried to kind of like put on the brakes on calling them names personally, but I definitely don't buy into the whole Dash thing. And I think it's I think it's a matter of time before something goes wrong.
Have you seen that Speedy YouTube ad? I've seen it a couple times. It's
what is it?
It's super hilarious. It's like a cartoon of like for lightning speed cryptocurrency transactions, use Dash or whatever, and it's like this goofy guy in a rocket ship, and it's like.
I think I may have seen something.
I've seen it like 10 times. I'm like, this is so ridiculous.
Yeah, I think, they have that, I'm going to call it a slush fund because that's what I think it is. Their marketing fund. So it's almost like they need stuff to spend money on. So you'll see all sorts of weird stuff coming out of there. It's like the government subsidizing art. You just get all this sort of silly stuff.
Well, they're the first one. They're one of the first cryptocurrency companies to dedicate like a large marketing budget and like be public about it. And I always said, I've been saying for a while, that Bitcoin, like the top companies, the companies that are around, they should combine a part of their marketing budget to like a national campaign.
Bitcoin miners especially, because I think they're the ones that most strongly, most directly connected to their profit. I think marketing would be. But the thing is, Bitcoin's just marketed itself so well. It's like if it's marketing itself so well. I mean. Like Coinbase and a lot of these exchanges, their problem isn't enough customers. Their problem is dealing with the scaling and handling all this volume. And that's a good problem to have, but that sort of, lessens the incentive of marketing. And I think if you do remember when Bitcoin was like dead a few years ago, not dead, but when it was quiet.
Which time?
Yeah, that's true.
Right,
when it was more quiet, I remember BitPay, I think, doing like big marketing in I think like the BitPay Bowl or something like that.
I think I remember
there was a lot of money spent very poorly on a lot of things.
But they were trying because there was that incentive. Now they just gave up and they're just working on dealing with the customers.
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, like there needs to be like concerted effort because no one's in charge of it, but they all rely on it to be part of their business. So, now you're right. There's no point in marketing something to people when the system is clogged. Right? Like, hey, come use this technology that'll cost you twice as much to send as it does to buy. Like, that doesn't make any sense. But, if we can get through some of this stuff, then yeah, maybe that'll work out. I just think it's not necessarily needed right now, but I think it could have been something that would have been really great at the time.
Yeah, it would be nice to see something voluntarily kind of conjured up that, like you said, does some marketing and maybe even does some sort of charitable stuff as well. I know a lot of people in cryptocurrency don't like centralization, but this would be kind of a voluntary thing where you could even have multiple of these organizations. I wanted to touch on something that you guys said about, okay, can it sustain these? I think you were talking about Bitcoin Cash. Can it sustain these price increases? And aside from, obviously yesterday was a special case because of Coinbase adding them, but I've noticed I hold about 5 cryptocurrencies. Most of them are in the top 10. All of them are within the top 15 market cap, but it's almost like they're doing like tag you're it. Like one of them goes up, shoots up double, and then like a couple, and then it either corrects or it just kind of becomes stable, and then the next one goes, and it's almost like they're taking turns. So it's not like Bitcoin Cash is really going out in front of many of the other currencies. It just seems like it's going in kind of in lockstep with some of the other major currencies, but they're just not all doing it at the same time. Or sometimes they are, but a lot of times they're not.
Yeah, I mean, what I think about Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash in particular, that's a little more unique than I guess the majority of other altcoins is I think the market capitalization is definitely much more not manipulated necessarily, but just I guess more unrealized. I think the majority of Bitcoin Cash users just haven't taken a position, and the money's just there. So I think just because the supply is cut down, that's why the market capitalization is high. And I think that's also true with Bitcoin, that the supply is there's a lot more lost coins. Whereas like Ethereum, I think more of the market cap is probably real. It's more not real. I mean, it's all real, but
it's being used.
There's that liquidity on the market. It more closely resembles the reality of the market, and that's also a thing that I see of I see a lot of people use BTC dominance, especially on like CoinMarketCap, and they look at that as a reference to see how dominant Bitcoin is. But I think there needs to be an adjustment for all these differences. I mean, and they do for like Ripple, I think, a bit, because that's a different situation where the supply really isn't out there on the market. But for Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin, I think just because they it's kind of hard, you have to estimate, and it's sort of harder to figure it out. It's not clear cut. I think they just haven't. But I think in order to really analyze the market properly, you need to have trying to figure out or estimate that.
Yeah, sometimes I know in the past people have tried to look at volume, but the way that volume works, it's almost like sometimes it's really, really low and then it just goes exponential. So it's hard to get a good gauge. You maybe have to look at some sort of long-term moving average. But so just to close out this segment, I was just kind of curious. I know Coinbase's CEO has said that coming up they would be adding, it sounded like several cryptocurrencies, or at least it sounded like they had maybe a short list. Obviously, Bitcoin Cash, it looks like, was the first one that they've added. But which ones are you guys expecting to be added? And I guess which ones do you guys want to be added? Chris, I'll let you go first. Which cryptocurrencies would you like to have added, or do you think are going to be added next to Coinbase?
I'll start with which ones I think are not going to be on Coinbase, which are any of the privacy coins, right? So Monero.
Really? I mean, I guess
because what's
the regulatory thing? Yeah.
Well, yeah, because they're going to have to KYC everybody that comes on their platform, pretty much, right? So
they already do, right?
That's what I mean. So why would you want to go there to buy something that's anonymous? Because then you've just totally
outed yourself.
You're like, hi, I'm over here. I'm using Monero.
Coinbase isn't really dealing. I mean, so like Bitcoin also is used for like anonymous or shady things, but people don't go to Coinbase for that, and that's not Coinbase. But Coinbase still sells tons of Bitcoin. The reason is because the underlying technology is what's really interesting for those people, and if the technology is interesting and there's a market for it, the price is going to go up, and people want to speculate on that, and that's what Coinbase I think could really still make a lot of money on. If there's a demand for it outside of Coinbase, investors want to get in on that. So I think for that reason that Coinbase probably would still add it. I just don't know if I know Monero's done really well.
No one should buy it from them then, because
investors who don't care just want to speculate on the price would. It would probably be better than like doing some shady exchange.
I think once you start, and maybe I don't know enough about the technology, but I think maybe if you start to interject traceable coins from people, then you can start to make some connections in the real world that down the road that you may not want to even have. So maybe Coinbase should just steer clear of those altogether.
Maybe, but that's like an incentive outside of Coinbase, right? That's like Monero would care about that, but Coinbase doesn't care. They just want to make money.
I'm a little bit concerned, and I'm a very big Monero fan here. I'm practically a Monero shill, but I can think optimistically about which coins they're going to add. But even me, I'm like, you know what? I have a feeling I wouldn't be surprised if they steer clear of something like Monero, at least for now, because even if you're talking, you can talk about the user side of things. Just in general, I feel like the government's going to be cracking down a little bit if they're making it easier for people to get a currency that's not traceable.
Right.
I don't know that for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happens.
Although I think there is also work being done on bringing a lot of privacy features into Bitcoin itself. So I think they can't really escape it. I don't know if they would try to stay away from it. What I've seen, or what I imagine that the reason that Coinbase is staying away from a lot of altcoins is partly for consistency or not confusing users. They sort of if they start selling BitConnect, they're gonna be responsible for it, and so they have to do a little bit of just because of their own branding and protecting their own reputation. They have to sort of do a little bit of research into it and make sure it's not just any coin. But for I think what would make sense, because Coinbase is sort of their front facing user ease of use thing.
Right.
I think it would make sense to put a lot of these altcoins, like tons of them that are out there and they're not at least scams, on GDAX. At least 10. I'd really like to see that.
You could almost test them out there first, right?
Yeah.
I could see Ripple easily being added. I think that's something that's up their alley. And I do want to say that Coinbase did do a really good job of trying to keep the IRS at bay, right?
Yeah.
And protecting their customers. So it's not like they're just
Right.
throwing their customers to the wind.
Right.
I think that they do have some of their customers' best interest, and I think that just because you don't always handle things best doesn't mean that you're necessarily an evil entity. I mean, that, like you said, it's just a marketplace, right? Mm-hmm. So I think they're going to try to do what they can, like you said, to make money for their investors and keep their business growing. And I think something like tying it into banks with Ripple makes a lot of sense for them.
I don't know.
I'm not saying I'm a fan. I'm just saying this goes to the exact same point you're making about why they would definitely, or why they should hold a Monero or a Zcash or something, right? Because people
want to trade it.
Buy it.
They're buying it.
I don't even know if Ripple really adds anything for their business. I think it's not even really
volume,
money.
Is Ripple is Ripple
principle.
actually a very highly traded coin? I know the market cap is listed as very high.
That's what I'm wondering, is who actually has sent their buddy Ripple? Does that actually happen? Because I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I mean, I know people have bought. I know people have personally bought it and speculated on it and this and that, but it's. I don't know. I really just I feel like it's if you take away what the market cap is supposedly, and it's definitely not. It feels like it's such a tiny altcoin. It's just, I think they might just have good marketing or something. But
they have really good marketing,
but no one uses it.
It's the sixth largest traded volume today.
Really?
Over $1 billion.
Right.
Oh, what's it over a week?
I'm sure trading wise, it's
over
excellent.
the last 6 months, I guess.
Half of my friends are pretty much the majority of my friends hold some Ripple.
Like crazy.
But one thing I will know. Actually, I'm not going to get off topic. Okay, so Chris, so that's which ones you think are not going to get added. Which ones do you think? Give me some names of some actual currencies that you think will get added.
So Ripple, I think, will be added to Coinbase
right
eventually, and I would say, I definitely think Ripple will be added, and it's actually. Honestly, it's so tough to say because like you said, there's so many you don't want them. They got to do their diligence, obviously. But yeah, I hope that I hope tokens that I own get put on Coinbase. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Well, one thing I was wondering is maybe at some maybe they'll add ERC20 tokens for Ethereum, but then again, you have kind of that scammy nature of them. So maybe it would. They already, I'm sure, dealing with so much customer support issues that maybe that would just bring on way too many more. But the ones off the top of my head, I think Dash and Zcash might be ones, because those are projects that have kind of been around for a while. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the bigger things they're looking at is, okay, how long has this project been around? Are we sure, kind of like you said, are we sure it's not a scam? And I'm sure they've been doing their homework for a long time. And at Coinbase, a bunch of them are probably holders of whatever currencies. So maybe that'll play a little bit of a role as well. So Jacob, which currencies do you think they'll be adding? Or like Chris said, which ones will they not be adding? Which ones do you want added?
I'm picking specific coins again. I mean, I can pick a couple. So I think Coinbase has Bitcoin, Ethereum. Do they have Litecoin?
They have Litecoin.
So they have Litecoin. Yeah, Litecoin should be everywhere. I don't know why it isn't. It's really like
it is kind of strange.
It's small, but it's an established non-scam coin that's a good it has. Maybe it's not that much different, but it's definitely not. It's definitely easy for them to add, and it's extra volume. I don't know.
Yeah, that's sense. One of the things that is another factor that I've figured out.
Did they add Litecoin before Ethereum? I forget.
God, that's a good question.
Yeah,
okay, there you go. But something like I think Litecoin, you would think it would be added to more places too because it's similar to Bitcoin. So usually when you implement like a plugin library for currency, if another one happens to be part of a fork of that same one, then it usually is easier to implement. But I think a lot of times, a lot of people thought there was no need for Litecoin as recent as maybe 6 months to a year ago.
Right.
But now, obviously, with transaction issues, Litecoin is. You would think it'd be getting added to more places, and maybe it is, but it's still maybe not as fast. Maybe their marketing isn't as good as, for example, Bitcoin Cash is.
I'll tell you what they are going to add. They're going to have to start adding all of the forked coins.
Yeah, they have
Bitcoin Gold,
but they're
Super Bitcoin, Bitcoin Diamond, because they're custodians
and that's what I was
people's money, and they're going to have to give people if their users have gotten newly created value.
But the thing is, that's so arbitrary. Like I can make one right now. You
I
can
know.
Make one.
I'm not saying.
It's a huge problem, and
it's
so that's
a major problem.
So that's what I've been thinking of recently. Actually, I've been thinking that. I don't think there is a single exchange that exists that lists every coin. It doesn't.
It's like impossible.
It's impossible. It's virtually impossible. And I think so. What we're going to have to see is sort of a decentralized exchange system. And I think so. Edge actually, I think, has something like this where you can sort of add your own coin in. I mean, that's just for wallet storage or storing your own coins on a wallet you own, and that's really great actually. I don't know if Edge is the only one who does that, but that sort of model. I think could theoretically be used in exchanges by users adding tokens themselves. And if you have the same token using the same blockchain, you should be able to verify that and sort of interoperate those tokens across. And so whatever you can trade anything. You can trade up something you just made up. That should be the idea. And then you're responsible for that. Maybe that's like off in the side in La La Land, and they have like a disclaimer over there. Don't touch this unless you know what you're doing. And then have like, I don't want to say like confirmed ones, but maybe more
established ones.
Yeah, that are like more in the front, and then let anyone like quickly add in a user friendly way.
All you need,
any coin they want.
All you need is a few people to get pissed off, form a community, and then a class action lawsuit saying that let's see, what Bitcoin Gold is $445 a piece. Mm-hmm. I bought 10 Bitcoins, that's $5,000, and I found 5,000 people who each have $5,000 on Coinbase that they're not giving us to us.
But so the way they'd have to, because they're not going to be able to sort through this when Bitcoin and Ethereum, and if this starts getting into a bigger thing and where we're forks, and that's a new trend I'm seeing that, and I actually sort of like that trend where altcoins are sort of forking off, like
sprouting
out of the main chain, or are sprouting out of a chain that already has a lot of momentum. And so it's actually nice for investors who are just invested in Bitcoin or invested in a main chain. You automatically get that, and you can sort of opt in or opt out of new investments. And I sort of like that model instead of, and you still do pre-mine. They can still pre-mine and they can still do all the stuff. It's just, it automatically hooks in to the, I guess, the current economy without having to recreate everything from scratch. I sort of like that. But
to the point of being a custodian, what do you say to your customers?
Well, like I said, if you can make it sort of a decentralized thing where anyone can add a coin to the exchange.
But Coinbase is not ever going to be decentralized, right? My point is like all these forks, these people are owed. Mm-hmm. If they own X amount of Bitcoin on.
Well, they have the option of either doing it manually, which I think is impossible.
You can't.
Yeah, for that many people, they won't know. Contract address, what's that?
You can't move. If you move those Bitcoins out it's not necessarily gonna be. It could have been something that they bought that day on like GDEX, not from a reserve that had the Bitcoin Cash still attached to it.
Especially if it doesn't have replay protection. Oh gosh.
So because it's all on their back end, which is off chain. So they're doing a bunch of off chain transactions, right? They need to move like all of their crypto so that they can extract all the Bitcoin Cash, so then they can give it to all their customers. That's a nightmare.
No, it's kind of
So they
scary.
have to do that with every single fork in order to give everybody their tokens that they're on.
Yeah, that is a logistical nightmare.
Right?
Yeah, and that's how do you decide which ones? Like, if you are going to do some of them, which they are doing, then
What
how do you
happens
decide
when you
which
say
ones?
no?
Because the
Or
thing
we're not going to do that one, and people get pissed off,
Yeah.
and it turns out to be like $1,000 a coin
Yeah, there's gonna have to be
in like a year.
There's
right?
gonna. I mean, this is good because we're having to figure it out finally. They should have really been thinking about this beforehand, but I guess this is pushing them to really have to do it. But
They're going to spend all their time just moving tokens so they can cash out people from forks, and they're going to.
But that's true. I think offline wallets inherently are a manual process. Someone has to manually do everything with it, which increases security maybe, but it doesn't. It prevents like any decentralized option. Maybe they can have like an online wallet where your online tokens in the hot wallet do get automatically split or something like that. And then you can sort of do, and they do have that. Like you do have Coinbase Vault, I think, where you have your own keys and you can do that. And so I think in that case you can get your own tokens out with that, but that's more of an advanced feature that hardly anyone uses.
Yeah, I think Coinbase is in a spot where it's pretty much uncharted territory, and whatever they do, it's kind of they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. So actually, I know they're probably making tons of money, but in ways I certainly don't. I'm not jealous of their position right now. All right, well, Chris, I think you brought in an article tonight that you said that you wanted to go over in tonight's episode. So why don't you go ahead and let us know what's up with that article?
Yeah, it's actually a newspaper, right? Thanks to my neighbor, Larry. Thank you,
Larry.
Thanks, Larry. Number 6. So it's the Wall Street Journal from this morning, today, December 20th.
Whatever
Time flies in this space. And basically it says, you're a Bitcoin millionaire unless you forgot your password. Distraught investors use hypnosis and supercomputers to recover cryptocurrency.
Oh my God, hypnosis.
By Allison Sider and Stephanie Yang.
Allison Cider sounds like a fake name.
Yeah.
Alice the Insider. Yeah. Okay.
So I stopped at lunch today with some old colleagues that I used to work with, and one of the guys actually had bought some Bitcoin, like $10 worth, like in 2014, toward maybe like end of 2014. And he totally forgot his password because he never had any passwords that were like what
they're always different,
right? And so he just was like, I can't remember, forget it, right? And I was like, sorry, man, I wish there's something I could do. Like you either keep it or you don't, and like if there's nobody to help you recover, sorry. So today, one of the guys said, what do you think about like using him in hypnosis, right? Like to get him to like recover his password. And I go, I swear to God, are you sure you didn't see like an article today in like Wall Street Journal? Because I only saw the title and I saw the word hypnosis and I was running out the door, so I didn't even like open it up. And he goes, no, I swear. And so I sent him a picture and he was like, oh my God, I can't believe that we were talking about the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it literally talks about like, Elon Musk had even mentioned that he forgot a password or where his Bitcoins are stored or something.
Elon
right?
Musk.
Like he has like a half a Bitcoin or something that he does like had no idea where it is.
Huh. Well, I think he'll be fine without it.
Yeah. I think he's an exception.
But no one is impervious. So just goes to show that no one's impervious to screwing up their Bitcoin wallets, right? Regardless of how technologically savvy or rich you are.
No, I've had a lot of mini heart attacks early on of when I was setting up Bitcoin. That's when it wasn't even that much, right? I'm wondering what sort of crazy things I've seen people, digging up hard drives or this and that. Now we're hypnosis. I wonder what's the craziest possible way that people are going to try to, you're going to remove brains or something. I don't know. Because if there's enough money on the line, right?
That's what I'm thinking.
Those Bitcoins are going to be worth a heck of a lot. And we're probably going to get, whatever it is, the limits of pushing the limits of whatever it is, because there's a huge financial incentive to get information out of human brains. That is there.
And now you get the forks too, so it's not just the price of Bitcoin. It's like oh yeah, you've got Bitcoin Cash and gold and Super Bitcoin and Bitcoin Diamond. Yeah, so I have a feeling it's just going to get crazier and crazier as time goes on. I would be surprised to hear someone where this hypnosis actually worked, where it wouldn't have worked otherwise. Like sometimes you just go to sleep and you wake up, you know what your password is. But I'd really love to hear someone who actually had a success story with that, because I feel like most people are like, oh yeah, I went to the hypnotist, I didn't find my password, but now I'm gay. I'm sure there's also I call me crazy, but I don't really believe in the hypnotist sort of stuff.
I'm skeptical, but I don't know. I'm sure that as we have palm readers and fortune tellers, we're gonna have Bitcoin password, or hints. We'll tell you half your Bitcoin password if you come and pay us for a session or something like that. I'm sure you're gonna see that popping up. If
you're gonna see crazy you're gonna see businesses pop up around it. People who have computers are just gonna go through common passwords. They'll say, okay, if you can give me maybe half of the password, then maybe we can crack it in like a few months or something like that.
My uncle almost did that because he lost 5 Bitcoins and couldn't remember his password.
Yeah,
and we ended up figuring it out because I walked him through some manual processes to try to think about how he could recover his password because he's 60 and is like most people in America and only has a few different passwords.
Yeah.
So it turned out he had changed his normal username, and that's what actually got us what it was.
Yeah.
So we got lucky, but it's interesting to me how people view the idea of being around a lost wallet, which is why consumer protection is really important, right? Because when it was, let's say, $2,000 that he bought worth of Bitcoin, right? When he recovered his Bitcoin, he was like, well, it was only $2,000. That's because he had all of his Bitcoin now, right? Which is obviously a lot more than $2,000.
Yeah.
But when he didn't have the Bitcoin and he thought he'd lost it, he talked about it in how much he had lost as it was right now.
Yeah,
right?
well, it's loss aversion, right? Yeah.
And so it's really funny to see the psychology of how people think around loss or gain.
Are you saying he was embarrassed? Like he was playing down the numbers when he had it lost, or what? I don't understand.
I think he just feels the pain. So when you lose, if it hurts way more. It hurts like I think there's a factor of 3-1 or 10-1 or something like that, where you feel a loss to a certain extent, and then you can actually. There was a great video, if I can call him out, a video by a YouTuber of Vertasium, I think, and they actually went through the process of sort of asking people if they would gamble X amount of money for an X amount of return, and there's actually a break point if you and it's a human nature thing. There's a certain amount of risk for reward that most people fall into, where but we are loss adverse. We're not going to take losses, even if it makes financial sense. So, even if you have good odds, if it's
they prefer the security sometimes.
They prefer not to take the bet at all, right? They prefer not to take risk, even if you take even if you have a 99% chance of making money in the long term. Most people just won't do it. So that's the general thing, in psychology. But yeah, I mean, I think the password thing, the losing passwords, is definitely an instance of where you're going to really feel that loss. And then that's sort of a negative thing for Bitcoin, just Bitcoin image in and of itself.
It can definitely be a bad user experience, and it is an area where you're supposed to pick a more challenging password because you don't want people to steal it, but then that makes it harder on the other side when you actually do lose it, because sometimes you won't use your normal password. So I can only imagine how much lost money there is out there that'll just never be recovered.
Oh, I have a few wallets of $500 or $300 from a few years ago that now is worth quite a bit more, and I have the wallet back up somewhere, I'm sure. I just since there were small amounts, I used to have many small wallets to organize things, because back when transaction fees were cheap, I'd sort of transfer money between it for fun and just use it as an accounting separation. Now it doesn't make sense to do that, but so I have a bunch of small wallets that I just I have the backup somewhere. I just have to look for them.
Yeah, I would definitely say for anyone who has stored it on a hard drive or anything like that, just try to save, maybe not your passwords, but if there's data files or private files with private keys somewhere, just be careful about deleting hard drives, deleting hard drives and throwing them away, stuff like that.
I had a hard drive crash and I lost 4 Ethereum.
Oh gosh.
There you go.
And I hadn't backed up the system yet. It was a newer hard drive, and I did something, a month into it, and it gone.
Yeah, I know a lot of people try to by default want to like delete Bitcoin wallets or their private keys after they've used them for privacy reasons, but it doesn't help your privacy at all. It actually just harms, if someone sends you money to that address or this and that. There's a lot of instances where you could lose money. So I think Satoshi was quoted as saying that you should never ever delete private keys. You should just always keep it forever, basically.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And in general, a lot of people are paranoid about getting hacked, but it's been my experience that more people lose their money from forgetting passwords or losing files, stuff like that. So that's something for our listeners to keep in mind as their holdings are increasing in value.
For those of ye out there enjoying the show, your captain would love to get some feedback on how best to improve it. You can find me on Twitter as Captain Crypto HD, and on most of the high seas of social media as either Captain Crypto or Captain Crypto Show. Just be on the lookout for my logo. Also, be aware that due to the technical aspects of each platform, that my podcast feed will always have the most up-to-date and latest revisions of each episode. So, if you're enjoying this episode, feel free to give your old captain a review on iTunes and share this episode with the rest of your crew. Now, back to the show.
So I know both you guys are pretty active on Twitter, and I think it was yesterday, or maybe it was today, following this whole Coinbase Bitcoin Cash fiasco, Charlie Lee put out a tweet where he essentially said that he's going to try to, I guess, liquidate all of his Litecoin holdings. He said he would keep some of his physical coins that he has, which I think is fair. But I was curious what you guys think.
Physical coins?
Yeah, kind of like Cassatius, right?
Right.
Like I don't know
There's
what you call
for
those.
Litecoin, I guess.
Right.
Oh, yeah, he was keeping that, right, yeah.
Because those are like more like keepsakes. But
right.
He's essentially saying that in order to make sure that there's no appearance of insider trading or anything like that, that he was going to be liquidating his Litecoin holdings. And I was curious what you guys thought about that. If you're kind of the steward, maybe de facto steward of a project, do you think like something like that is really necessary? Is this something that'll help the Litecoin community or their image? Or do you think this is just something that doesn't really matter in the long run? Jacob?
For Litecoin, I don't think it matters. He had a very small amount, and I think it was pretty obvious that he probably had some sold off quite a bit early on, and this and that. But I think for some altcoins, I think and I think even Bitcoin, if Satoshi didn't have, I think that does scare quite a few people when they learn that he has so many coins.
Right.
And I think for a lot of other altcoins, like just the amount of like pre-mine might be wrong or too much. And so I think for Litecoin, it's going to probably be the most worthless thing out of all of them. I mean, I think it's more of a statement for him to make, but I think the value of that will be limited for him.
Yeah, my understanding is he already liquidated it. Right, and he said that it was just a blip on the radar for GDAX for the day anyway. So
yeah,
right. So someone
it shouldn't really matter. I think if he wants to get rid of it, I don't know if it's more of a PR tactic.
What I'm wondering is, what did he sell it for?
That's the real question, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think one thing that came to mind was that if we have kind of this situation or this environment where people can get kind of pushed around, if they're a leader or a CEO or what have you, if they can kind of be, I'd almost say bullied in a sense into having to make these sorts of decisions, or they're no longer holding the coin that they are developing and stuff like that. I think in a way, when you have some of the leaders saying, okay, like I'll capitulate, in a way that does kind of create a sort of environment where now people are going to say, oh, we got Charlie to liquidate his holdings. Like who else can we go and more or less attack, to put it?
I think it's sort of, it is worthless though. I think it really is because I think like you were saying with like Coinbase, there's no way to really prove it. That like he could still be holding Litecoin for all we know.
That'd be hilarious. I think that'd be absolutely hilarious.
And so it's a political statement, really. I mean, there's no way to really there's no really way to prove insider trading really. On a decentralized network that we have an anonymous...
and like, what does insider even mean? In any market, you have people that know a lot and people who don't know as much.
I think the distinction is between public and private information. That's, I think, what it's going to ultimately... I was thinking about that too. But I think that if there is a certain bureaucracy or centralization that sort of is in charge or has access to that information and the public doesn't, that's where you have that manipulation. But yeah, even in the public,
I mean, isn't that everybody's like goal is to like create a cryptocurrency and then sell it at some point? I mean,
Right.
if you don't ever sell it, then what's the point of holding it unless you're Satoshi?
Right, and it's almost like, well, now he has less stake in actually making the coin better. I mean, I'm not questioning his dedication to his project, but I mean, if we think proof of stake is something good where people can have stake and they'll do the right thing for the coin, then wouldn't you want the people who are in charge to actually have some skin in the game? That might actually make more sense.
right.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he should have kept them, or at least some of them. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with CNBC doing a article on it and then him selling. I mean, I think timely of him to do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's convenient.
But who's to say, like, maybe he looks like a jerk now, but let's say the price of Litecoin is $600 in 4 more months.
Yeah.
Does he look like a jerk then? No. And I don't think he really does now either. So I think it's just, there's always going to be haters. There's always going to be people spinning things in one way or another to make it look a certain way and paint you in a certain light. And if they don't like what you're associated with, like it was Coinbase bashing day, you know, it was like, let's, who can we focus on next? Oh, okay.
The pitchforks are already sharpened.
Yeah, you don't feed the trolls.
Yeah, that's kind of the tactic, I think. It's just funny because whereas you have someone like Roger Ver, who's definitely an attack dog on Bitcoin Cash, Charlie's kind of like the opposite side of the spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Like, literally like the lighter version.
Well, I mean, he already succeeded by getting it listed on Coinbase, right? I think that was part of a strategic move of him going to work there. So I believe that. But that's what a good like business owner should do. It should try to get its market or its product out to the market.
Yeah.
And if Coinbase was willing to do that because they were like, well, yeah, people have been talking about Litecoin almost as long as they've been talking about Bitcoin. I mean, when Bitcoin first hit $1,000, people were like, Litecoin's the silver to Bitcoin's gold. Mine that. And people were like, maybe should we buy a Litecoin miner? And then like Litecoin went to like, I remember 33, 40 something dollars. And people were like, oh yeah, right. And then it was just flatlined. And it was like $2, $3, $4 back in January. You could have bought Litecoin for $4.
That's crazy. It's crazy to think about how long it's been around for too, right? So there's a lot of people who don't have it implemented in their applications. They have Bitcoin, maybe even Ethereum, but no Litecoin. It's like, okay, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Like you've had forever to be able to do this, and you have to wonder what the question. I just think maybe in the past, when Bitcoin's fees were lower, maybe it wasn't as much of a much incentive to add Litecoin, but obviously that's changed now. But either way, I have some friends that actually do like what Charlie Lee did. So one way or another, it seems like it's probably, at the very least, buying them some positive PR. So one article that I've seen brought up and shared by a lot of my peers and acquaintances that are into cryptocurrency this last week was one that was coming from Zero Hedge, and it was titled 2018, the year central banks begin buying cryptocurrency. And I'm just going to summarize at least what I took away from the article, and that was that now that Bitcoin's getting so big that essentially it's the point where central banks and a lot of the really big institutional money are going to be naturally buying some of it to store it in reserves, because a lot of these big institutions, one of their strategies, you could say, is they like to hedge their bets a lot. So one of the things I think they are looking at is, okay, if they're holding lots of currencies and maybe oil and some of the other major commodities, that if something, especially with central bank and national currencies, is if they start to fail, a lot of people think that Bitcoin and cryptocurrency will end up doing fairly well during that time period, right? Because it's kind of like an escape hatch for people who are otherwise holding that national currency that's failing. So there's kind of this idea that these huge institutions, some of them actual central banks or related to national governments where you're talking billions, trillions of dollars, there's this idea that they're on the sideline right now, and some people, this specific author seems to think that there's a good chance that in 2018 they may be jumping in, and with them will be coming a lot of that money. So Jacob, I think you mentioned that you had actually taken a look at that article, and I was kind of curious what your thoughts were on it.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it too, but I'm wondering about what was their reasoning. I don't remember their reasoning behind why they think it was going to happen.
I think part of it was that they were saying that with Bitcoin getting as big as it's going, as big as it is getting, that it's kind of something that actually can't be ignored. They like to have a fairly diverse, asset basket, if you will. And Bitcoin is one that obviously the returns have been excellent during the last year. And I don't know if they'll always be like that.
Do you remember which countries were involved? I mean, I think definitely the U.S., but what?
The G7 specifically.
G7,
so you're talking about the
7,
big,
yeah.
Right.
But I don't know. I feel like at least one of them would be against the idea. I mean, I don't know. It seems sort of
antithetical.
Antithetical against to what the government's interests are in a lot of ways. I mean, maybe they don't see it that way at this point,
or maybe they think they can just buy as much as they can and try to manipulate it.
Yeah,
but I mean, if you manipulate the price, I mean, so like
no, you just manipulate the supply. It doesn't matter what the price is, as long as you can control the supply.
Well, supply is supposed to work with the price, right? I mean, it's like a reverse thing, right? But the thing is, you can, with cryptocurrency, you can make as many as you want. Like right now, for instance, I'm using some smaller altcoins to do actual what I just normal transactions instead of Bitcoin, just because the price is astronomical and stuff. So if it gets to that point, there's 10 million. They can't, and then so they're just gonna have to buy another one, and so it's like in a way we've they say that gold is manipulated. So in a way we've moved from gold to cryptocurrency, but in cryptocurrency there's 1,000. We can just jump one over if it is manipulated. If anyone thinks it is, they just stop using it and they use another.
Yeah, and if it's something where they are buying up enough that they can actually do some significant manipulation, you would have to think just having an entity as big as they are buying up as much as they could buy up would have an upward impact on the price of Bitcoin, which I know some people who don't care much about Bitcoin might actually be open to that idea because they long-term don't care about Bitcoin. They just care about the price.
Right.
And there's a lot of people like that.
Yeah, and one thing too, so going from gold to Bitcoin, like I was saying, there's a problem of acceptance, right? Bitcoin's not accepted right away. But as that's growing, as the network is growing for that, and as now we're seeing altcoins are growing, I think you're seeing a lot of them being interoperated. So it becomes less important about which coin you're using if you can spend them all in the same places. If they're all just as fungible, if they all have maybe not similar characteristics, but if they all work in the same sort of ways, they're all on the same private keys,
and you can exchange them easily.
So the learning curve drops, even though maybe some of the technology is different on the back end and stuff like that.
That's assuming that those governments understand that.
Right, and so maybe they don't understand that, but then but if they're doing trillions of dollars, I imagine they're gonna, really...
They're talking about very large amounts of money, yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna do their due diligence. They're gonna figure this stuff out. Otherwise, they're for a bumpy ride to get burned, big time.
Yeah, I actually do think there's a chance that they could get burned because someone like that, if they wanted... I'm curious how they would even liquidate something like that. Do they have to go talk to Coinbase or GDAX or someone like in person say, okay, this is our central bank account. You put zero limits on it. Like, how do you think what is that conversation even like?
They did. So the only time I can think of that the U.S. government, for instance, did liquidate, it was like on the Silk Road. They did do an auction.
But that's them selling. Okay, so that's one way.
The U.S. Marshals were selling it.
Yeah, it's a little different, right? But that's one way.
Right, but so how would they buy it, though? I guess is the more interesting thing.
Yeah, just put bids on.
And speaking of insider trading, if anyone knows that that's happening, all of a sudden it's like, okay, everyone's buying it, trying to get in before that buy order goes through.
They wouldn't put like a simple limit order. What they'd probably do is they'd buy like X amount across, over periods of time. And
somewhere there's some bureaucrat who's buying 50,000 at a time. Like,
insider trading.
Whoopsies. This one looks like this transaction slipped to the wrong typoed public address. Because, with Silk Road, they had a bunch of that corruption stuff. And they did penalize the people who did it, but at least the ones that we know about. So you never know.
I think, it's an interesting point because I think, it's a weird thing that, in the banking infrastructure, you don't really have that problem because I think you can reverse transactions.
Sorry, go ahead.
So in the banking industry, you can reverse transactions and you can sort of trace it quite, very well. I think that we're going to see multi-signature being used a lot more because you can basically put those things back into Bitcoin if you, and so for government seized funds or central entities like that, I think Coinbase and large exchanges probably do something like that to an extent already.
Yeah, you certainly hope so. And I know multi-sig is a different topic itself, but it is something that's been around for a long time, but I haven't seen in that many wallets, but it's a very useful tool that I just think is not necessarily utilized quite as much as it should be. But I just thought this was an interesting article because on one hand, in 2018, it's like, okay, there's probably going to be still quite a bit of scaling issues with Bitcoin. But then even though that might be pushing the price down, on the other side, you have this kind of wild card, at least if this article is to be believed, this wild card that could make the price, I'm not going to say skyrocket, but steadily increase at a rapid pace. So 2018 is going to be very interesting. I think especially for Bitcoin, I feel very bullish about a lot of the altcoins going forward, though.
I don't know. If Bitcoin's in a bubble, how long do you think it can really be sustained? I mean,
40K.
Why 40?
because there's at least the same amount of market cap sitting on the sidelines waiting to come in right now. So
why is it waiting? Why is it waiting? I mean,
because they're trying to do all their diligence. They're trying to set up their companies up correctly so they don't have to pay 40% taxes, right? If you want to set up a fund, you have to do certain things and follow certain regulations. So
weird. Yeah.
But you got 25 millionaires, right? And you want to have them all come in, right? And they all want to bring in X amount, so you want to put $100 million. So there's all these different rules for different types of funds.
The thing is,
cap them out at different rates. So you have to know what you're getting yourself into so that you can bring in the right.
The thing is, it's an exponential trend. So if you have, it's twice or three times as much capital that's not in Bitcoin yet waiting on the sidelines that is definitely coming in, if we can assume that, you'll pull in probably equivalent amount from more and more hype. So if it really reached 40,000 a small amount of time, I think you'd really get to I don't know, this boat would just go insane. I don't know, you might hit 100.
Yeah, so I guess I'm going to transition to kind of a similar topic, but I was thinking about this today and just thinking about where we are now with cryptocurrency. People believe the long-term trend. Some people say it's just going to be exponential, which I don't know if it could sustain something like that, but I wouldn't be surprised if it kind of has an S-curve. It was flat for several years. Within the last year or so, it's really started ramping up. I'm wondering if we are at that kind of point of inflection where maybe the growth rate is at its steepest. Do you guys think that the growth rate can go quite a bit faster than it is right now, whether we're talking Bitcoin or altcoins and cryptocurrency in general? What do you guys think?
Gosh, I hope it not. I hope it's not. It can keep growing at the same rate as if we're in a bubble, right? But this I forget, maybe it's wrong, but I think if they said if this growth rate was kept up for 3 years, it'd be bigger than the U.S. economy or something like that.
That's crazy. Do you think that's possible? Sort of sustained.
No, I think that's insanity.
I agree.
At this point,
that's insanity.
Yeah, but this growth rate is the percentages need to drop.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is the percentages being smaller and the price of Bitcoin being so much higher, like an order of magnitude higher. The amount of money that's moving with each percentage change, right, is
going up.
It's very significant, right? It's $1,000 a day, $2,000 a day in price movement for 3, for 5% or something, right? So you start to see these huge swings in what the value is, even though the percentage could be relatively small.
Yeah. Right? So that's one thing I'm optimistic about is after all this, hype settles, whether we stay high or we crash or whatever the heck. I think we are going to have really good stability, and that's going to be really good for building, and actually having Bitcoin as being able to say, it's actually stable. You can actually use it for the first time ever. You don't think so?
No, I don't think so, because there's only a few on-ramps, right? Now there's Bitcoin Cash as an on-ramp, so you can buy with fiat.
On-ramp? On-ramp is fiat to crypto,
exactly, right? There's only a few on-ramps to crypto through fiat. Right?
There's
there's 4, and that's it.
Well, you're talking about like large exchanges, right, in the U.S.
But look, that's how I'm talking about money coming in, which is going to drive the price. Where do they come in? They can only come in through those 4 channels. Right. So those 4 channels are going to pump. Right. Like that's why I'm thinking like that, because a lot of these people who are playing it safe and who have tens of millions of dollars in the bank and want to throw like $100K at stuff, they're talking about, you think Ripple's a good idea? Well, it's because maybe it is to them, because they come from that infrastructure where they have like 10, 20, $50 million in the bank, right? Like they're used to using banks. They trust banks. Like they, they're just doing this as a speculative thing. They're not necessarily going into it like the libertarians were doing it in 2011 and trying to push it because of the philosophies behind it.
But you don't think that, so you don't think it's going to be more stable after all this hype gets a little bit settled down? Because the thing is, the larger the market cap is, the more money, like you said, the more money it takes to move it in either direction. So if you need more money to move in either direction, you're going to consistently need larger and larger amounts of money or larger and larger investors to really be able to move it, right?
Yeah, but you come up with $100 million, and so do 10 other people.
Right, but then
That's a billion.
Right, but then to move it beyond that, right? So if the money stays there, so the money doesn't leave Bitcoin right away.
But other people, I'm just reiterating your point. You said if big money comes in, little money is going to follow it too and also pump.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So it's all going to come. It's all going to come in, and it has to come in those on ramps, because people are going to then say, "Oh, well, I want to get some of this, or I want to try some of that token."
I mean, if you think it's going to 40, though, where do you think the crash point would be if we do crash?
It could happen in between there, but I'm just saying, or it could hit 60 and crash back to 40. Like, I mean, if you start to think of them as 10,000 as like the exponential logarithmic scale, 10 is more like 1, and from 10 to 100,000 is more like 1 to 10, right? So even though it's a much larger volume, right, the way in which it gets from 10,000 to 100,000 is going to probably be very similar to the way it goes from 1 to 10, right? All these other tokens, right? So I think because of its popularity, and I think because of the amount of money that's sitting on the sidelines, and it's the one that people are like, why am I hearing this 4 times a day on Bloomberg?
Yeah.
And that's where they get their news. And so now that they're getting bombarded with it, they feel like they have to be a part of it finally, because mainstream media is covering it.
Yeah.
And they don't want to miss out. But they've already kind of like, I wouldn't say missed out. I'm just saying that I think that they have different set of incentives than people who are early adopters.
Yeah. And I think they're because of that, if the price does dip.
But that's how new money comes in, because now then they're forced to learn, because they don't want to liquidate. So I actually think it's good. Every time you get an all-time high, like a serious one, and you get people buying in near that all-time high, the people who bought in at 19.5 or 20 are going to be like, oh, it's at 16. Oh my God. Right? And if it drops back to 12 or something, they're going to be heartbroken, like we were talking about earlier, right? But they're going to be in it now. And if it takes 12 months for it to correct, they're probably not going to sell at a loss unless they're like just super impatient.
I think human nature is to sell though at a loss. I think that's like
kind of the panic selling. It's hard to tell really.
Like even brokerages will ask you like, what would you do if your stock lost this much money right now? As like a test. I think it probably is human nature to do it, but I think getting their feet wet and getting sort of the marketing in there probably has that similar effect that you're talking about.
Yeah, one thing I will say is that as cryptocurrency has been increasing its prices, it's been growing fairly rapidly. There's a point where it grows so rapidly, and you've seen bubbles pop in the past. So I've found that I have a lot of friends who are looking for the next token or currency, altcoin that'll go up tenfold overnight and stuff like that. And they're constantly spending all day just chasing after these cryptocurrencies. And kind of what I've done is, I do just kind of take the hodl strategy, and it's to the point where I would prefer a slow, gradual march upward that can almost be relied upon, that you can almost count on. I know that's insane in cryptocurrency, but that feeling of, watching it constantly march its way up and knowing that, hey, it's probably not in a bubble because it's going at a more logical pace with its technological developments. I would say I don't need the rapid price increases. I don't. In fact, I would definitely say I prefer just kind of the gradual growth. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on that.
I mean, I'm loving this, doubling, tripling so far. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely feeling like the fear of this, the fear of the irrational market and all this greed it terrifies me, honestly.
There is impending doom coming
at some point.
But and everyone knows it. Everyone who's been in, everyone's like saying it too. It's like,
yeah, but I thought I was going to correct at 8,
No, I sold like 1 Bitcoin at 9, I think, or something.
I mean, I really did. I thought I was going to come back around, but I think when I said boring, I wasn't trying to like crack on you, but I think here's the point to me is that the volatility is what makes it so exciting for people because there's so many opportunities, to make money. And that's why it's even got on the radar because you're like 1,700%, and people are like, "Excuse me, what was that?"
So it is kind of a good PR.
Well, yeah, it's I mean, look,
gets the headlines.
If you want the market cap to grow, which means your investment grow,
it's almost it's I don't know. It seems almost weird though. Like stocks, like there's always stocks that go up like a lot. Like
there's
every
stocks
year.
Now that are just throwing like crypto in there. Like,
But even before that, like historically, like there's just every year there's a stock that just does astronomically well just because of like something that just a little thing, and that doesn't get all this media hype. It doesn't get like a huge bubbly thing going on in it. So this profit potential doesn't exist just in crypto, and things like stocks and stuff that's easier to get into. Why crypto? Why Bitcoin? I don't really understand why that's the case. I mean, there's got to be some marketing or something about it. Maybe the fact that people don't understand it.
Yeah, I think just the volatility in general. Maybe the fact that it can crash too, right? That gets some headlines as well.
When the CME and the SIBOs start talking about it, like we're going to do futures, all the people who were like, "Oh, we ignored that," and you're going to start going to start doing futures. I guess we should start paying attention. And all the media is covering it, and like, how can you not cover something that's gone up 1,700%?
Yeah, I think as time goes on, I'm starting to realize that human nature is to kind of have the hype cycle. Like humans like their periods where they're resting, and then it hypes up, and then it reaches fever pitch, and then it crashes.
They only like to talk about it when it's safe because everyone else is talking about it.
Yeah.
Right? Like when we were all talking about it and coming to meetups.
Oh, we were crazy people.
Yeah.
In 2014, and
we'll be crazy people again. But
yeah. But that's my whole point is that now that it's not for just crazy people, right? That's where now you're starting to see the real push. So I think how long is this sustainable? I think into the new year, as smart money or big money is trying to find its way in, I think you could easily double the entire market cap of all cryptos by like June.
So 1 trillion at least, or over a trillion.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's possible, at least 50%. I can see a 50% increase by June. So three quarters of a trillion. Excuse me.
I haven't really taken
three zeros.
Now I think about it, I haven't actually looked at the actual like market cap. Well, no, where was it at the beginning of 2017? Like 50 billion or something. It was like 70 billion, somewhere around there.
120, 110.
So during the course of the year, it's
that
triple?
That would make crypto like 1/8 of gold. It sounds like
fake to
strange.
That sounds either there's a lot of gold or it's
just I don't know. That sounds bubbly to me. I just saying that out loud.
What, 100 million?
Well, I think gold's like 8 trillion, so over a trillion.
Yeah, if it went up to a trillion. But yeah, I mean, but
1/8.
But don't you think though at some point Bitcoin itself, if with its popularity, could have a market cap of $1 trillion?
Yeah, in a long time. Not now.
No, I'm not saying within a year, but I'm saying within like a 5-year period. I mean,
yeah, maybe. Yeah, if we get
only 3 times. That's only 3x the market cap.
Combining the next halving and scaling, and the market getting ready, stuff together,
increase scarcity.
Yeah, and just being able to handle, I think the whole all the business infrastructure that was built just wasn't ready to handle all this. So once I think as those 3 things, I think in the next 3 to 5 years, I think we'll definitely be there. As those three things really get on board, I think then you'll be able to really see Bitcoin adoption have a chance.
Yeah, I especially think if they're able to come up with a good second layer or scaling solution that works well, that has a good user experience, that's not too hard for the developers on the application layer to implement, I essentially think the sky's the limit. I mean, we're talking about the future here, so
yeah.
I think it could.
Do you think that will like kill altcoins too? Because that's a big reason for it. I mean, Ethereum's a different thing, but still.
That's a really good question. I guess I would say I really don't know. There are some other use cases where I think like maybe privacy. I don't know if Bitcoin will ever be the best at privacy, but maybe a lot of people that do care about privacy, maybe it'll still only be a small fraction of what Bitcoin can do. But I definitely think whoever is able to implement the best or a solid scaling solution first, they're going to have a lot of advantages to that. Without a doubt.
The thing about privacy coins that I've seen is that you need to have a big user base. If you're you can't be anonymous alone, right? So
right.
That's the thing. So I think if Bitcoin is just bigger and just has a bigger network effect, if it can get decent amounts of privacy, it might just even be more private. It might just like be safer to use Bitcoin, even if the technology is a little less private, just because of the user base.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and if you just look at the total like supply right now versus like what the market cap is, and if it was to go to $1 trillion, based on the current amount of Bitcoins, like 16.75 million Bitcoins that are in existence, $59,000 to $60,000 a piece
for $1 trillion market cap of Bitcoin.
Of Bitcoin, yeah, at today's volume.
Why is volume, Eddie?
Well, because there'll be more Bitcoins. Every 10 minutes there's new Bitcoins coming into
the current supply.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that I don't know. It still seems high to me, but
I mean that's just math. I mean that's straight up $1 trillion divided by the total volume.
Yeah.
Right? Or supply.
Yeah.
I mean it's crazy to think that way, but like when you start to think about like just in general where that could be in just 2 years or 3 years, it's insane, because there's a big difference between going from 1,000 to 6,000 and from 10,000 to 60,000, right? Yeah. Like that's a big difference.
I'm like doing the math on my portfolio.
Yeah, even though Bitcoin has its own like intra-network scaling issues, when you think about cryptocurrency as a whole, it's like they're just having more and more coins come in, more and more money come in, more and more developers coming in. So I wouldn't be surprised if the space itself, just 2018, I think will probably be still a booming year for cryptocurrency. That would be my guess. All right, well, it was another exciting week in the books, and there's a part of me that does like the exciting sort of developments that occur on a weekly basis, but with the holidays coming up, I don't know if I'll be around my computer quite as much, so maybe cryptocurrency will take a little bit of a break during the next week, but most likely it won't. It'll probably ramp up, but hopefully it'll be Santa bringing me a present and instead of just filling my stocking with coal. All right, so that's it for tonight. So this is your captain wishing you fair winds and following seas, guys. Set sail.